Hello, everyone. This is Nathaniel Yavronsky, and this is April 2nd. This is, Autism Day, Autism Awareness Day, and it's during the, Autism Awareness Month, which is the whole month of April. Now, as you can see, I'm actually wearing red and not blue. Blue is a color that's most commonly they try to associate with autism speaks. However, a lot of people with autism have found that we don't necessarily go with the color blue, and we don't necessarily think that Autism Speaks is the best voice for us at all times. And so we kind of, as a community, have decided that red is more our color that suits us. And we know that we're not actually going to come out and say that Autism Speaks doesn't do any good work. We just think that there's other things that can be done to benefit people with autism across the country and across the globe. One thing about people need to realize about autism is that 9 out of 10 of them are not employed. People with autism usually go their entire lives without having gainful employment. The gainful employment they do have, the jobs they do have, typically are only for a few months at a time and years in between. A lot of people with autism have a hard time, even though they might be able to be really good at understanding how the stock market works, or being really good at understanding how government works, or be the leading world-renowned expert on a specific subject, that sometimes like buttoning up shirts or being able to get to bed, or this simple things is just almost impossible for people with autism to do. One of the things is actually getting what's up in our heads on paper, like typing out emails or trying to write out letters and notes, is very difficult. And this is actually one of those things across the board, that being able to say things is one thing, but trying to write it on paper or in an email, or trying to type it out, that becomes very, very difficult, because we're limited by a variety of things. As far as we all have these different things in our heads that just make it a barrier to try to get that stuff out from our heads and our mouths, to where we put it on paper. So videos and phone calls are actually better for us to communicate outwardly. However, one of the things about autism is that all the nonverbal communication that we should be getting in a conversation, we don't necessarily pick up on or understand. And so in that case, written is sometimes better as far as what we're receiving, because we're both we're equal as far as not being able to get the nonverbal aspects of the communication. So it kind of goes back and forth on this. I mean, autism is a complicated thing. It's not something that you can say, well, this person has autism and everyone else has autism. It's going to be just like this person. That's not how it works. And a lot of people really don't have enough background knowledge and understanding on this. And we're just trying to bring awareness. As we're having Awareness Day, an Awareness Month. Is that we're not all the same cookie cutter. Some of us have different abilities than others. High IQ across the board. Sometimes the way we say things, the way we verbalize things sounds weird or awkward, and sometimes the way we write things, because how we write them and how we meant them and how some other people would receive them, all the messaging gets all lost in that communication. So it's a difficulty for people with autism to communicate. A lot of times when we're reading from scripts or reading from pages, we sound like a robot because we are just reading the lines off of the page. And so when, a lot of the phone work that people can do, like we work at a phone center or something like that, well, they get fired very quickly because we sound too much like a robot when we're trying to read, verbatim off of a screen. It's, I know a lot of people with autism that tried doing like telephone jobs or scripting jobs where they're reading things off a page, being recorded or on the phone, and the jobs don't last long because of that aspect. A lot of the videos I do, some of the older ones, you can kind of see where I've just basically memorized and was re-saying each word as I memorized it versus just having a conversation. It's pretty robotic, and that's a problem that we deal with. Also, relationships, being able to deal with people. People get bad vibes. That's something that everyone gets. The whole idea of getting a vibe from someone, that's a thing. I don't care if you're autistic or not, Down syndrome or not. It doesn't really matter what. If you're a neurotypical or neurodivergent, everyone gets a vibe from everybody else. It's a thing. And it's also true that because of our mannerisms and the way we act, and sometimes our stimming, like for me, like I want to do this all the time, it drives everybody nuts. or a lot of people will actually like bend, do this type of thing. I don't do that for stimming. I mess with my hands a lot to stem, but our stimming behavior actually causes people to, either by the noise it makes, even though it's very slight or very quiet, it's just repetitive and drives them nuts. Same way, actually, that the same type of thing would drive us nuts. It's those two-way street things, but a lot of times, things that we do that we call stimming to try to, de-escalate ourselves or to, calm ourselves down and recollect ourselves, drives other people crazy, and sometimes it gives people bad vibes from us, and it's just part of things that we deal with. But same thing, other people do the same. They have these repetitive motions or actions that drive us crazy. So we understand, but understand that the reason why we're doing it, the same reason why other people are doing their thing, is trying to calm down, like chewing their nails or popping all their knuckles. It's part of human behavior. It's not necessarily because you're autistic, but don't be so angry at people for trying to recollect themselves or decompress. Allow them to do that, and that goes for people that are autistic and non-autistic, as far as understanding that this is part of the human condition. As far as legislation is concerned, listen, we have been working on this for quite some time. In the state of Iowa, I'm in the Iowa State Capitol right now. We're working on legislation that for people who are disabled, that we could actually earn some money and not lose our insurance. Because a lot of the things that we need covered for insurance, private insurance companies don't offer because it's too expensive. The only way people can get these services covered is through the Medicaid rules. And if we work too much, or try to work at all, we lose our Medicaid, then we can't get the medical care we need, and then we have to quit the job to get back on our Medicaid. No one wants to go through life without having a career, without having a job. It gives us purpose, it gives us relationships, it gives us a reason to be out and about and to be productive. Work is not a punishment, it is actually something that a lot of us strive to have. So this bill in the Iowa legislature would actually allow people to work. Again, and a lot of people aren't going to be making a lot of money, and a lot of times they won't be getting a job that offers them insurance. But this way they don't risk losing their health care. If they do make like $800 or $1,000, a month, which you can't live off of that, but it gives them something to do, something to be, a part of society with. At the federal level, we're working at changing a little bit about the asset limits. Like $2,000, if you ever have an emergency, you're in a lot of trouble if you're not allowed to have any savings. People living on disability, which is almost everyone with autism, they are on a disability program called SSI that doesn't allow them to have any assets or any money saved up at all, or they're punished for it. I mean, they can't even live with other people to save costs. They're punished for it. So this federal bill, the Fairness and Social Security Act, which would eliminate the marriage penalties, and would also boost up the amount in assets that someone who lives on Social Security could have before they're punished for it. So they needed to have emergency amount of money for car repairs, because you do need to get to the doctor's office. A lot of people with autism don't live where public transportation is a thing, and if it is a thing, it's not something that people with autism can really function and use all that well. It's hard for us to maintain a schedule like that. Any little thing that sets us up is going to ruin our entire day. So cars for people with autism who can drive, which most of them can drive, they need to be able to get around, because public transportation doesn't really work for them all that much, and it's really expensive to use cabs all the time. So unless you're going to give everyone with autism free cabs if they live in a city, or you're going to make someone drive them around if they live in the rural areas, they're going to have a car, and they're going to have to be able to have money to repair that car when it is inevitably going to break down, or even buy it in the first place. Also the American, if you get married, you can be punished for it. If you live with your spouse, you can be punished for it. I mean, if you live with a relative, you're punished financially, because, you should just be, your parent or your uncle should just be covering your living costs. It's not how that works for most of us. So we're working on that at the federal level, trying to remove some of those barriers that prevent us from being able to be successful. Listen, in 2022, there were almost 50,000 suicides. Okay, in the United States, almost 50,000. The veterans, the 22 a day, that's 8,030. Okay, So that brings you down to a little over 40,000, okay? And then you have the average population, which is about time and a half less than the 22 a day. So you're looking at like maybe 15 a day, maybe somewhere around there. That brings you down to around 37,000. So the average population plus the veterans brings you down to 37,000 suicides. What is left? That's 37,000 are people living on disability, living with neurodivergencies and other types of conditions, which do not allow them to have the necessary resources to survive. They're not allowed to live in housing that you would want to sleep in. They're not allowed to have the ability to get to and from places they need to get to. They're never allowed to have relationships with people because they're punished for it. And if you remove some of these barriers and allow these people to have dignity and actually be able to be financially stable, then you're going to start, I think you're going to see a mass decrease in suicides nationwide. And this is just one of those aspects about people living with a disability, especially a neurodivergent disability, because you look at someone, they look fine, but you don't know the struggle they had just to get dressed in the mornings. Luckily, I don't have that problem, and I think I'm actually pretty good on fashion sense, but there's a lot of people who they can be CEOs. And there are some that are actually really high up in the corporate, but they can't get dressed in the morning. Like it's just a mental breakdown of them trying to get their pants on or tie their shoes. I can actually tie shoes. A lot of people with autism can't. So there's a lot of these little aspects. I'm luckier than many others, fortunately for myself, but there's a lot of them, and we're all not the same, have a lot more difficulty. And we need to be understanding that, now we're all not the same, and understand that we are not homebound, we are not bedridden. We want to have lives, we want to be successful, we want to contribute to society, so they should let us. And we should be punished for trying to improve ourselves and trying to get off of those government programs and be completely independent. But we're going to have to be able to do it without being penalized with our insurance or our living conditions or the time it takes us to be able to get a job that pays enough money for us to survive on. So that's the whole purpose of me doing this video, is bring awareness to some of the things that we're dealing with in day-to-day lives, and what we're doing with at the government levels to try to improve ourselves. Relationships are hard. 2023 was probably the worst year of my life as far as friendships and relationships. I pretty much lost every friendship I had. All the ones that really mattered to me, lost them all. Not necessarily my fault or their fault or even the autism. It's just all of them fell apart. I think out of the 10 friends I went down to like 3. And so that was tough, and it's something that people with autism deal with a lot. When all of a sudden everyone's against us, we have no idea why. We're completely we're public enemy number one. We really have no idea why. Happens a lot, but 2023 was like the worst for this. Anyway, guys, this video is dragging on. I just want to make this video for everyone to understand this is Autism Awareness Day. People where people with neurodivergencies are not all the same, even with the same diagnosis. We're not all the same, and we need better understanding. We do need governments to understand that the rules and the guidelines that they have for people with autism were all written in 1989. That's the last big change, and that we need to modify those for a society that's existing in a whole different realm than what it was back in the 1980s. So thank you everyone for your time and watching this video. Stay healthy, stay wealthy. As always, stay wise, America.